I have a confession to make. If you looked at my goal sheet from January 1st, 2025, and compared it to my results on December 31st, on paper, I completely failed. I didn't hit the revenue targets I had dreamed of. I didn't master the business skills I thought I would. There were days I wanted to quit, and days I wondered if I had made a massive mistake leaving my difficult but at least stable career. But if you ask me if I would trade 2025 for anything, the answer is absolutely not. Because while I didn't get the results I wanted, I got the lessons I needed. Welcome to Insights from Insight. I'm Amanda Armstrong, and today we're talking about the art of having a long obedience in the same direction. Every year we start the new year with promises to ourselves about what we're going to change for the better over the next 12 months. In 2025, I was very specific about having goals and not resolutions so that I could break them down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Because of that laser focus, 2025 started out as my most ambitious year ever. I started a new company and set out to resolve the issues with an unbalanced work and home life. My list of goals would have made any Fortune 500 CEO sweat. I was so focused on these goals that the first piece of content I put out for my new business was that goals are better than resolutions because they're super clear, they're bound by time, and they could be broken into these smaller parts. But by December, I had not hit a single one of those goals. I have never learned so much in a 365-day span than I did in 2025. It turns out that my goals for 2025 were lofty at best. I was trying to read a P&L statement like it was a fifth grade book report, and none of the characters made any sense. My ignorance created goals that were pretty impossible to meet, even for the most dedicated a person. I couldn't just willpower my way through the development of a company from scratch. My general lack of understanding how a business actually runs created barriers I did not even know existed in January of 2025. I spent a lot of the past year thinking I had zero business being in business. The one business class I took in my undergrad program of study was a course that was actually history and not really a business class. And the people I thought were going to teach and guide me through the business things like marketing, accounting, setting up operating systems, etc., were not able to commit the time that I was asking for them to commit. I don't really do things on a small scale. When I get an idea, I go full force until it is realized, even if it's a bad idea. Once I figured out I was indeed a solopreneur, I had a decision to make. I could either give it all up and just go back to the classroom and accept what was, to me, a pretty dismal fate, or I could just learn to do the business things. This shift made me realize the most important part of business. Scaling your goals to match what you can do right in the moment is really, really important. For many of us, we reach these decision points in our lives that can determine a large amount of our futures. Most of these decision points are choosing between an easy path or a more difficult path, or maybe even choosing between a difficult path and a less difficult path. What led me to push forward anyway, even though it all may just be a really bad idea, was deciding to put faith in my own philosophy of education in general, which is that anyone can learn anything if it is presented in a way that they are able to learn. I still hate all the business stuff, and I know I still don't know a lot, but I also know that I've not tried my hardest yet. There very well may be a point where my best just won't be enough for this to be successful. I am very, very aware of that possibility, but I refuse to let not trying be the reason this all fails. I have a post-it up on my bathroom mirror that says Taylor's success is due to a long obedience in the same direction. Of course, I'm talking about Taylor Swift. I had heard Michael Burt say this randomly on Instagram after taking his daughter to the Eras tour. The concept of having a long obedience in the same direction became this flagstone for me. I would go back to it every time I started thinking it was time to give it up. Because everything I do has to be backed by research, and because I'm just naturally curious, I did some digging into the phrase. and it turns out that it came from a totally different era. Friedrich Nietzsche originally wrote it in Beyond Good and Evil. He argued that anything that makes life worth living, virtue, art, music, dance, even reason, comes from a long obedience in the same direction. Basically, restriction and discipline creates freedom and beauty. Eugene Peterson, who was a pastor and author, made it famous in the modern era with his book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. He used it to counter our instant society that wants quick fixes, wants immediate shipping, wants instant gratification, and he argued instead for perseverance. I kept looking for a quick fix this year. I kept looking for the one marketing strategy or the one curriculum tweak or the one schedule change that would suddenly make everything easy. And I was looking for a breakthrough. Nietzsche argued that anything in life that is worth having, whether it's the ability to play a complex piece of music or the skill to teach a child to read or maybe the grit to build a business, only comes from submitting yourself to the process. It comes from staying on the path long enough to get somewhere, and you have to stay on the path even after the excitement has worn off. We live in an Amazon Prime world. We want 2-day shipping on our dreams, and we want 30-day weight loss challenges and get-rich-quick schemes, and we want the result without the time. But 2025 taught me that you cannot hack this process. A long obedience means showing up on the days when you don't feel like it. It means grading the papers when you're tired. It means sending the emails when you feel discouraged. It means realizing that the boring, repetitive work, like accounting, isn't a sign that you're failing. It's the actual price of admission for building something great. At some point in 2025, I stopped asking for miracles and just decided to rely on my own strength to stay in the journey, to be obedient to the process. And what I didn't realize was the impact that it was having on my children. We spend so much time worrying about what we teach our children. We worry about their grades, their manners, their screen time, but we often forget that the loudest lesson we teach them is how we handle our own bad days. This past year was one of the more difficult professional years of my life. I was building Insight Education Academy from the ground up. I was tired, I was scared, and I was failing at things I didn't even know how to be successful at. And the whole time my kids were watching. They didn't see a mom who was crushing it. They saw a mom who was struggling, but who chose to keep moving forward. Even if I do ultimately fail at becoming a businesswoman and the content I'm putting out in the world goes nowhere, I am really proud of myself and what I've accomplished thus far. That pride comes from my youngest just asking, what are everyone's goals for 2026? Even if no one else hears, reads, or watches anything, that question from a 10-year-old sitting in the back seat as we drive home from our holiday vacation means that he has heard me, he has watched me, and he knows what a long obedience looks like. While I accomplished nothing I set out to do in 2025, that kid did. He had to work really hard to catch up with his peers in school. He wanted to get certain grades, and he did. He wanted to get certain test scores on state exams, and he did. He wanted to medal in a karate tournament, and he did. And he worked to accomplish all those things with the mindset that has come from the example I set out for him. And I am really, really proud of that. And I am not going to be self-effacing about it because that is not the easiest example to set. He has learned that he can pivot, he can reset, he can refocus, and he can change the timeline of your goals. But no matter what, you don't give up. You get up every time you get knocked down. To me, that is what a long obedience in the same direction really means. That you can have the bad day, you can have a bad month, or you can even have a full year of awfulness. But you don't let that derail forward progress. The progress may look different than you thought it would. You may have to even stop for a while to think and figure out what a path forward even looks like. But that pause is just a timeout. It's a moment to think, a moment to regroup and refocus. For 2026, my goals make a lot more sense. They are limited in reach and they're more like a running game where in 2025, I was trying to pass over a lot of yardage that you just can't skip. The work is tedious, the work is often boring and frustrating, and a lot of the work others can't even see. But at the same time, the work is important, valuable, and dedicated towards an ultimate goal, an ultimate end game. What is the one thing you are willing to be obedient for over the next 365 days? Even when it gets boring, difficult, or exhausting. What is something that you desperately want to be different on January 1st, 2027? And it can be the tiniest of things. It could be that you want your partner to empty the dishwasher without being asked. It could be you want to be able to say no to chaperoning the field trip to the zoo without feeling any guilt. Maybe you want more white space in your planner, or maybe you want to fill your planner with new adventures. Whatever you want the next year to look like, it begins with deciding you can and will be obedient in that direction. If you need some guidance, I have a State of the Family audit that can help you towards your own journey, and the link is in the description. You can't really start forward progress without knowing where you are right now, and this audit will help you do that. As for my own professional journey, Insight Education Academy is going to focus on shifting from surviving to thriving in 2026, and I hope that you will join us on the journey. Let me know what you want to accomplish in 2026 in the comments. I would love to hear about your goals in your own journey. And make sure to follow so that you get notification when new episodes drop. Thanks for listening, and I wish you a fantastic 2026. I'll see you next week.